안녕하세요, Charnelle입니다, and welcome back to episode 2 of Auxiliary Ending. So today we're going to be talking about Rookie Historian Goo Hae-Ryung, and yeah, so that's what we're going to be dissecting and diving into and analyzing today. This show first aired back in July of 2019, and the final episodes ran until September 2019. We have Shin Se-gung as Goo Hae-Ryung, and then Cha Eun-woo as Edim, Prince Do-won, and then the second state chancellor, who will meet the queen, Prince Ejin, and Song Sa-hee, which we'll meet her too, and how she plays a major role in this show. And yeah, so that's the character breakdown. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm trying to fix my mic. So that's the character breakdown, and yeah, so we'll start from the beginning. In the first episode, we meet Hae-Ryung, and she's, living her life. Her brother has her enrolled in a marriage preparatory school. So basically it's where back in the Joseon dynasty they sent so that's where back in the Joseon dynasty they sent women to go get prepared for marriage. So I mean, basically they were taught that even if you know the answer, never say the answer, or never say that you know the answer, because your place is just to be a shadow. Basically, that's basically it. And Hae-Ryung was very knowledgeable, and she didn't want to get married, and she couldn't understand why her brother had her in this class when she's like, I don't want to get married, we could just be here, we can drink together, we can read together, we can just live like this, I'm fine like this. But he tells her that they can't live like that, and if he allows her to become an old maid, which is like an old unmarried woman, and back in the day old would probably be in your 20s. Yeah, so if he allows her to become an old maid, his image would be then looked down upon. And as they're talking in the night, their conversation gets interrupted, and a palace messenger or somebody from the king's palace comes to get him, and he goes. Earlier in the day, though, Hae-Ryung went to the bookstore, because even though she's a noble lady, she's from a family of status, she likes to read. And so in the night, she reads to all the other noble ladies. But while the rest of the other noble ladies are being read romance novels, Hae-Ryung does not like to read romance novels. No, she likes to read mystery books, or just anything that's not circled around romance. And so she's at the bookstore because the people who she read to the night before kicked her out and didn't pay her because they were expecting the hottest romance novel that's going around town, and she was reading them a story about how the man killed himself because he just couldn't love the woman or something like that. And so they kicked her out and they didn't pay her, and she went back to the bookstore to go look for more work. And he was basically telling her, you've made all, if not all, of the noble families upset because you don't read what they want you to read. And she was trying to find work, and she really doesn't need to work, but she likes it. This is what she likes to do. She likes to read. So she wants to share the interesting stories that she's read with the noble women. And so as she's in the bookstore and she's reading this hot new novel that everybody is obsessed with, this man comes up to her, and he's looking at her, and he's smiling. And we find out that he's Prince Do-won, and he basically begged his eunuch to let him go out the palace so that he can see people's true reactions to his book because his pen name is Mehua. And so he wants to actually see how people are receiving his book, because all he does is hear this from his eunuch. Like, his eunuch and his two maids are like, yeah, the book is amazing. I cried. Like, it was awesome. And he's like, that's what you always tell me. I'm tired of hearing this from you. I want to hear and see it from the people. So they go outside, out of the palace, and they go into town. And he's just so happy as he's looking at all the women and all the people reading his book, smiling, they're happy. He's just like, wow, they're really enjoying my book. And he's super happy. And then he comes across Hae-Ryung, and he thinks that, oh, she's really enjoying my book too. And then she yawns because she's bored out of her mind, because she hates romance novels. And he becomes offended. Like, and he goes up to her and it's like, well, tell me, how do you feel about the book? And she's like, this is a waste of paper. I feel sorry for the paper that was used to create this book, to print these letters onto this book, because this is a waste of paper. And he follows her out, and they kind of get into a tiff, and he's trying to like defend his book without making it seem like he's the writer, because like nobody can know that he's Mehua, while the bookstore owner is actually looking for Mehua. So while he's talking to Hae-Ryung, his eunuch is going to collect the payments for the book. And the bookstore owner sends two goons to follow him, because he doesn't know that he's with somebody else, to follow him and to see who the real Mehua is. And this is because like there's a higher up guy, a bigger goon, a bigger thug, who wants to know who Mehua is, because the bookstore owner has promised Mehua to this man. So he sends these goons to follow the eunuch, and his eunuch is like, run. And so they run, and he kind of gets some scrapes. And we know, well, most people don't know, but back in the day it was like a big thing to not have scars on your body for men, but then it was more strict on women, especially if you were going to marry the king. Like, you couldn't have any types of scars on your body. A woman with scars cannot marry the king, basically. So yeah, he got some scrapes from running, and his eunuch was yelling at him because he was telling him like they shouldn't go to the bookstore. And yeah, he was just like, but he was happy in the end either way, because he got to see people's true reactions to his book, and this is all he wanted. So I mean, I was happy for him for that, because I mean, my guy is stuck in this palace, like on his own, in the furthest corner of the palace, all by himself, with just 3 other people every day. So all he does is read books and write stories. And that's it, and walk around his garden. It's so sad. So as the story progresses, we're gonna stay with the book theme, right? So as the story progresses, we meet Second Chancellor, and he's talking to the king about this book called the Book of Hodam. And there's a lot of mystery around this Book of Hodam, and we don't hear anything about the Book of Hodam until the end of the show, basically. But there's a lot going on with the Book of Hodam, and he tells the king we need to ban this book and ban a few others along with it. And so he creates a book ban committee of basically all the Second Chancellor's people come together, make a list of books that they want to ban, and they put it out. These books are banned. Anybody who has this book, this is basically contraband right now. So anybody who has this book, they're going to take it, and then they're going to burn the books. So later on, like a day or a couple of days after, Hae-Ryung is coerced into acting as Mehua to read to the noble ladies, because this bookstore owner knows that she's a normal reader, because she comes to him for work, and she only agrees because there's this little boy who the big goon is holding as his slave. And she's like, basically the little boy's father sold him to repay a debt. And she's like, if I do this for you, you set him free. And so yeah, he actually does it. I was like, he's probably gonna say, yeah, she's gonna do it. This he's gonna be like, just kidding, he's not gonna be set free. But he actually set him free. So win for Hae-Ryung. So she does the book reading, and after she's done reading the book, they have like a signing, an autograph portion for all the noble women. And they have like this sheer curtain between her and the ladies, because for one, nobody's ever seen Mei Hua. Nobody knows what he looks like. So literally anybody could be Mei Hua. And that's what they were going off of. That's what they were hoping for, you know. Anybody could be Mei Hua. You just read as Mei Hua. You practice how to do some brush strokes as a signature. And we cash in on this. We cash in on this, okay? And as she's doing the signature signing, the real Mei Hua comes there. Prince Do-hwan comes, and he's like, I wanted to see who is impersonating me. And basically he's telling her, you know you're not Mei Hua. You should come out here and apologize to these women for lying to them. And so she does. She comes out, she apologizes, she says, I'm not the real Mei Hua. And the women get mad, like, so what is this that you put into my book? And she's like, but wait, the real Mei Hua is here. And then she looks at him. And right as the women are about to storm Prince Do-hwan, the authorities come and they start grabbing people and collecting the books. Because what was the book's name? Moonlight Lovers or something like that. It was also on on the list of banned books. So the authorities came and they started, as soon as people saw them, they started running, they started collecting books, and basically Hae-Ryung was caught, and she basically threw Prince Do-hwan to the authorities so that she could escape. I mean, she did feel guilty later and was wondering if he was okay. But she doesn't know that he's a prince. All she knows is that he is now, it's confirmed that he is Mei Hua. Because when they first met, she was like, if you keep going like this, I won't believe that you're the real Mei Hua. But yeah, so now it's confirmed that he is the real Mei Hua. And she throws him to the authorities, and she goes and runs for her life and gets home. And then she's like, oh, I hope he's okay. But yeah, he gets freed because his eunuch comes and is like, I'm Mei Hua, basically to free him. Because nobody knows that he's Prince Do-hwan, right? The king is keeping him under wraps. Nobody knows him. Nobody knows his name. And that's another thing while he was in trouble. When he went to the police bureau, they were asking him for his ID because everybody had an ID. But he didn't have an ID. So the policeman was asking him like, wait, what is your father? What does he do? And then he was like calling ranks, and his ranks would go, the numbers would get lower, which means the ranks got higher, like the third state chancellor or the second whatever. And he was just like, no. And the police was like, whoa, his dad's quite up there. What? But yeah, so when his eunuch came to free him, his two maids came and they were like, Mama, which means like, Your Highness, or it's like a term for the king or the prince. No, it's for the prince. So the policeman overheard, and we're gonna learn that just about everybody is working for the second state chancellor. Like, people say that this isn't the Yi's dynasty, okay? It's not Yi family dynasty. This is for the Min. This is the Min dynasty. The second state chancellor is Min, what's his name? Min In Hong. And yeah, they're gonna say that this is his dynasty because yeah, the king is on the throne, but really, Min, the second state chancellor, He runs this. He runs everything. He even runs the king. And we're going to find out why later on in the story. Now, the second state chancellor does a lot of things, but the first thing that we see that he does is the banning of the books, right? And that's partially because he wants to know, he's anxious to find out who is behind the story of Hodam. Now, he's suspecting the queen. Now, the queen is in a position that he cannot reach. So what he does is he makes a request at their royal meetings when all the advisors come to meet the king. And in this instance, the king has appointed the crown prince as his regent. So when they come for a meeting, the crown prince is there as the regent, and they're with him, and they're telling him, we should have female historians. Now, this would be big back in Joseon. Now, as we know, there were no female historians back in the Joseon dynasty. This is fictional. But, so he requested that they hire female historians, and the crown prince was so upset. He went to go meet the queen, and she was basically like, he already knew, but she was just confirming that whatever you do, it's probably gonna be your downfall or whatever. We know on one hand he wants to use these female historians as spies, because they're gonna, he phrased it as, they're going to record the daily lives of the inner palace, right? So he wants to assign them personally to each person. So the king, the queen, the crown prince, and Prince Doan, who's in his own little area at the corner of the palace. So basically, the crown prince, knows that if he rejects, it's gonna be a big thing, and so he accepts, and he's like, okay, we'll have a female historian exam, but I will create the question, and he will be there to oversee. But people still cheat. But anyways, so they have they agree on this, and honestly, when he said that he'll agree, I don't know if they didn't think that he'll agree, but they were all up in arms like, no, women can't be historians, this, that, and the third. And he's like, you guys were the ones who brought this up to me. You requested this, I only accepted, so why are you upset? Why are you upset that I've accepted your request? Does that make sense? No. So they kind of quieted down, and news started spreading that they were hiring female historians. And I mean, most families didn't want their daughters to do this, because if you didn't get selected, like, your chance of getting married would be super slim. And that was the big thing back in the day. And I mean, it's still a big thing now, like making sure that your daughter is able to get married. So yeah, if the girls were not selected as female historians, it would be harder for them to get married, if they were even able to get married at all. So most families didn't want their daughters to do it, but some girls still went and did it because that's what they wanted. They wanted to do that. Now, Hae-Ryung doesn't find out about the exam until the day before. And now the day before is also the day before her marriage. So we go to her wedding day, and she's waiting, she's getting dressed, but she's also anxious. Now, we don't know why she's anxious, but she's anxious. And then we see the groom, the husband-to-be, coming, and there's this duck in her brother's hand, and he's about to pass it on to the groom, and he doesn't take it. He's like, I can't do it, I can't go through with this marriage. And he says it loud so that, and Hae-Ryung hears it. And so at this moment, she sprints up, she starts taking off her ceremonial garb, and she's about to hop the fence. She's about to hop the fence and go run to take the exam. Now her main maid, her main servant, is there helping her, like, take everything. And it's like, she had like these three red stickers, 2 on her cheeks and 1 on her forehead, and she tells her to take them off. and she runs. She goes, she runs, she forgets the one thing that's on top of her head that's also like there when you perform the marriage ceremony. But anyway, she's running and she has like her regular hanbok on, and she's running through the streets of Joseon to get to the palace to take this exam. And she gets to the gates and she's like out of breath, and she's like, I'm here to take the female historian exam. And she's so excited because this is what Hae-Ryung lives for. She lives for things like this, for books, for being able to go out and exert and like use her freedom. Basically, she wants to feel free. Like men are free to go to work every day, but she wants to feel that for herself. And we find out later on that she does tell her brother this. Like, she's told him, I was always jealous of you because every morning you had somewhere to go, and I wanted to experience that just once. So this is the day she's been waiting for. She goes and she walks, and she's about to sit down to take her exam. And as she's sitting, she starts to reminisce about the night before. So after she found out about the female historian exam, she went to her husband-to-be and basically talked him out of the wedding. She's like, if you could just cancel this wedding, just say you can't marry me, that would be amazing. And I mean, he's kind of hurt. He's like, I mean, would you rather have this stain than be married to me? Is the thought of being married to me that bad? Is it really that bad? And he just doesn't understand. But, you know, he still goes through with it, as we saw previously, as we heard, when he basically yelled, which was her signal to know that he was going to go through with it, that he couldn't get married to her. So he does do what she asks, and she runs and she gets to take the exam. And the question is, the exam is announced. A solar eclipse is believed to be an occurrence that reprimands kings for their shortcomings. Solar eclipse rituals are performed to satiate the heavens. But this phenomenon still happens. Therefore, how can a king prevent a solar eclipse? And she sits there with her paper blank until the time for the exam is almost up. And prior to this, the prince had taught. So the night before, the crown prince had spoken to the prince about what his question should be. He didn't feel like giving the standard historian question because those are standard. He wanted to do something that, well, it will be harder to get an answer from. And the prince told him, you should be looking for the most brazen answer, like an answer that will knock your socks off, that'll be like, how dare this woman say this? And so basically the prince was telling him what he should look for. And I mean, at the same time, he was also looking for the woman who impersonated him as Mehua. So I mean, I guess he was figuring two birds, right? Two birds, one stone. Find her. Don't know what he wanted to do with her when he found her, but you know, he wanted to find her. So the prince chose the question, and that was the question about the solar eclipse. And right before the time is about to end, Hae-Ryung writes basically that the solar eclipse isn't powered by mankind, it's the will of the heavens, and you can't control it. And then she goes more into detail, and they find her answer completely brazen. She says that the solar eclipse occurs because it is a natural phenomenon caused by the movement of heavenly bodies. She suggests it would be helpful to create a book to help make sure that people aren't misinformed, like in the future when it happens again. And this was just such a brazen answer for a woman, you know, as they thought. So when the other historians were back in the room deliberating to figure out who they were going to pick, I mean, mind you, throughout the whole exam, we saw historians passing answers. We saw them passing whole pre-written scripts. Okay? They were cheating to the utmost degree. Okay? So we saw historians helping other women to help them get hired. And this is what the prince notices as he's walking by and looking at the papers. He's like, these handwritings are exactly the same. These answers are similar. Show me one that doesn't look like everybody else. And they're like, we have this one, but it's very brazen. And he's like, let me read it. And so he reads it. And he's like, wow, you're right. But he makes a short list of candidates, and they post it up around town, up on the bulletin, and he invites them back to his residence. And the men are thinking, well, maybe, you know, he wants to invite them there to let them down, all this good stuff. But when they get there, he calls them in one by one, and when he starts talking to Hae-Ryung, he really like digs into her. He's like, these people, the citizens, Joseon is a poor country, and they're just worrying about where their next meal will come from. They don't have time or the privilege to read or to worry about what a solar eclipse actually is. And so when he's done talking to her, she thinks, oh, I didn't get it. I just got a scolding, and I'm just gonna be back, and my brother's probably gonna find a whole nother person for me to marry. Like, oh, I didn't get it. But then he calls the final four, and it's, so the prince was a little upset that he couldn't go to see like the women taking the test, even though he had helped like find the answer, find the question for the test, and he wasn't able to go and view the test. So the crown prince told him that the royal villas was open and that nobody was there, and that he could go there to, you know, relax and enjoy and really just get away from the inner palace for a little bit, because that's all he's ever just, that's where he is all the time, just in the inner palace, in his house by himself with his 3 helpers. That's it, with occasional visits from the crown prince, and or he'll go visit the queen, but that's really it. The king doesn't visit him. The king doesn't acknowledge him. The king thinks that whatever he does is just so stupid and so wrong. And yeah, like you're thinking, how can a king not like his kid? Well, we'll find out later. Oops. So the prince and his eunuch, they go to the villa, the royal villa, and as the prince is walking, he sees a dog, and by the dog he sees an engraving in the ground, and it says Meihwa, or not Meihwa, sorry, it says Hodam and Yungan. This is where the pact was made. And he's like, what's this? But you know, he walks, he goes into the villa, he goes into the hot spring, and he starts to have a nightmare. And it's this man in the king's garb, in a royal garb. It's red with the gold indentings on it, what the king wears. It's red and gold, and he hears somebody like whispering Hodam around him, and he feels like he's drowning. And so we know at this point that the prince has been having nightmares, and he doesn't know why. And he goes back to look for the engraving that he saw, but he can't see it in that spot anymore. And his eunuch said that he must have just been hallucinating. So he blames it on hallucinations. And so he's like, okay, you're probably right. I was just hallucinating. But he wasn't. It was a message within his dream, and we'll find out more. Oh my gosh. So Hae-Ryung has decided that she has a job, that she's going to start working as a female historian. But the first day, like, the men did not even want to acknowledge them. And then when they finally did, they treated them like servants. Okay, so they had these women running to go get their hot water, running to clean their shoes, like just menial tasks, because they didn't want them to be there. Everybody was opposed to this. And after like a while of dealing with this, one of the girls is like, yeah, Sahui, she's like, well, why don't you guys just give us a hazing? Why don't y'all haze us, and then we could just get past this? And Officer Yang, who is the lead historian, is thinking like, they really think we're just gonna be all buddy and cool with them after this hazing? I have other plans. So they go and they ordered like expensive food. They order a lot of food, and that's part one. The women, the 4 female historians, have to pay for this food, right? And then they make them drink. So they bring a big barrel of liquor, of wine, out, and instead of the little cups, they bring a bowl. They make them drink liquor out of bowls, right? So Sahui was the first one, and on her, after her second bowl, going to her third, Hae-Ryung saw that she was struggling, and so she took it and she drank it, and she propositioned to Officer Yang that whoever was the last person up after this drinking contest would be the winner. Now what they don't know is that Hae-Ryung is a strong drinker, okay? Hae-Ryung drinks with her brother almost every day. So she can hold her liquor. And so that's what they see. After countless amounts of drinks, Officer Yang falls over, and the female historians start like celebrating, because that means that Hae-Ryung won. And the next day, one of the officers, he told the guards not to let Hae-Ryung in the palace at all. So they're all there like, oh, she's probably hungover. She's probably like, she can't even stand up, because Officer Yang is having the hardest time staying awake. Like, he is just so drunk. He's so hungover. He is in a lot of pain. Like, and so he's thinking, she must be like 3 times worse than what I am right now. She's got to be struggling. But no, she's not. Hae-Ryung is up, she's bright-eyed, she's bushy-tailed, and she's upset as to why she can't get into the palace. And so somebody tells her, there's a little hole further down, and you can go through there and come into the palace. And so she does, but as she's crouching, trying not to be caught, she gets caught. And she gets caught by Prince Do-won, and she turns around, and they recognize each other from the bookstore and from the reading. And so this was their third encounter. This is their third encounter, and while she's encountering him, you know, they're discussing about how she must be hungover and how she must just be in so much pain and isn't able to get up. And after he tells them, yeah, she's not even going to be able to come into the palace today. I told one of the guards not to let her in. And then she walks in and is like, I'm here, hi, I'm here, I'm ready to work. And they're like, you're late. Of course she's late, because you guys schemed against her because you're mad that she won. But anyways, there's 4 girls. So there's Sahui, who is just so off-putting. And then there's the other 2 girls who are closer to Hae-Ryung. who are closer to Hae-Ryung, and they go and they thank her for basically like taking one for the team. Like, you didn't have to drink for us, but thank you because you did. And she's like, oh, it's no problem. And then the fourth girl comes and she's like, oh, you don't have to thank me. She's like, I wasn't gonna thank you. Don't ever get in my way like that again. I don't need your help. And it's like, ma'am, you look like you were struggling yesterday. But okay, that's fine. Fine, I won't help you again. And so after their talk, they're taken to go meet the queen. Oh, he's awake. They're taken to go meet the queen by the queen's court lady. And after they're done, some more court ladies come and they take them away. And the other court ladies are there like, why are you naked? Okay, sorry for the interruption. Somebody came out from waking up naked after he went to bed with pajamas on, so my apologies. 죄송합니다. So yeah, where we left off is Song Sa-hee was telling Hae-Ryung not to get in her way next time. Don't help me, I can do this on my own. So Hae-Ryung agrees. Okay, I have no problem. You sit, fine, do that. So after their brief, you know, powwow, they're called into the royal meeting, where the royal council meeting, where they're going to record the meeting for the first time. And let me tell you, all the counselors and all the little officials heated, okay, in their feelings. Why are they here? Why are the 4 female historians here recording this meeting? But yeah, since, you know, they thought that they were gonna be slick and the regent wasn't going to bring all these female historians, and now they're getting a taste of their own medicine. Not really, because I mean, all they're there for is just to record history. So they start the meeting and they're basically talking about there was a flood, and that those citizens are in trouble and that they need help. And the top officials are saying that, well, why should we help them when these people move to the mountains to evade paying taxes? And the regent, Crown Prince Yi-rim, was like, well, why are our poorest citizens paying the most taxes? Sounds familiar? But yeah, why are our poorest citizens paying the most taxes? When over time everybody was paying taxes at one point, and then the top officials start giving less and giving less until they just stopped paying altogether. So you, like, to everybody in the room who own and who have control over the top wealth of Joseon, are not paying taxes, but you expect people who can barely get food on the daily to pay majority of the taxes that you're neglecting to pay. Make it make sense. How does it make sense? Because it doesn't. So that's what the meeting is basically going over. They don't want to help the citizens, and the regent, Crown Prince, clearly wants to help the citizens. And in his right heated statement that he was going in on these counselors, the king walks in and he then he tells the Crown Prince to leave, basically. You know, oh, you think you're the king? Because he said something along the lines of my country, I'm the king, or something like that. And the king walked in and was like, oh, so you think you're the king, you know? You know, a fight that they should have behind closed doors and not in front of all these people that are holding a lot of things over you. Well, at least over his father, because he didn't know what we're gonna find out later for like majority of his life. He was today years old when he found out, okay? So the historians then are tasked to like describe, write down, record the dead bodies. Okay, so previously there was a group of people who were printing books, and they were printing the story of Hodam. And while they're in the middle of printing, they got, because you know they set up like traps and stuff so that they can be signaled if anybody is coming to them, because this now currently is a banned book. Okay, it's a banned book because it has some deep secrets in there that is the truth but is deemed as a lie, and it can hinder the current king's rule. So they have traps set up to signal them when anybody is within their region, in their range, and so they get signaled because they step on a wire, which, I mean, clearly the assassins don't know that there's a wire, and they step on it and they get signaled and they start burning the books. They start trying to burn the books, but all the books aren't burned, but the assassins come and they start, I want to say fighting, but really they start slaughtering them, okay, because they try to defend themselves, but honestly, trained assassins, I mean, they were probably trained to some degree too, but very trained assassins versus you. So yeah, they're dead. And then there was one guy who was over the fire and actively putting the books in, and he got slashed across his back. And we meet this female physician, and she comes in and she stitches him up, and he's alive. He's the only one of everybody in that book printing room who is alive. And so the second state chancellor hears this, and he hears about how he was stitched up, and how it wasn't like what they do in Joseon. It was like a Western medical practice. Like the way how she stitched him up was not how they do in Joseon. So second state chancellor sent his little henchman to go kill the guy. So here's what happened. The crown prince is walking in. The assassin is walking out, but he is dressed like a guard. So crown prince isn't really thinking much of it, even though he finds it kind of weird, but he's not thinking too much of it. And then he walks inside the room and he sees the body is no longer moving, no longer breathing. He is dead. And so he then follows the dead body. But we go back to the historians who are recording the other dead bodies, and at this point they don't know that that guy is dead, right? So they don't know that that guy is dead. And so everybody's all freaked out and they don't want to be there, but Hae-Ryung's like, so the guy who's still alive, can we go visit? Can we go see him? I want to see like how she stitched him up, what she used, what was her method. I think this is what she used. It's a Western practice style of healing people. Okay, I want to see. Okay, Jesus, sorry, Moon Lover, Scarlet Heart Rio, wrong show. Hae-Ryung is like a kid in a candy store. I want to see the stitches. But they're like, no, like, stop being weird. No. So they all leave and they start walking home, and she's like, I forgot my sechek, which is the book that the historians record history in. And with this book, nobody else can view that book except for historians. And a lot happens with that too in the future. But they're like, isn't it in your hand? And she runs back. She starts running back because she wants to go see this body and this man who has stitches. And she's like cutting in between side roads, and then she comes across seeing the the prince backing up. Okay, he is reversing, and then she sees a knife pointed at him. Because remember, he followed the assassin, and while he was following the assassin, he saw him taking off the guard garb and putting it aside, and then continuing to walk. And while they were walking, the guy noticed that somebody was following him. I mean, because he's been he's probably been working for evil second state chancellor for a moment. So he knows to be on his P's and Q's and on his tippy toes and to cross his T's and dot his I's, okay? So he like kind of cornered him, you know. I keep wanting to call him the crown prince because he is, spoiler alert, he is the real crown prince. But the Prince Do-won, is cornered, and him being the cute little naive guy that he is, he doesn't know because he never leaves his residence. So he keeps following him. He thinking that the guy's still running straight, and then the guy comes up to him and is coming at him with a knife, and clearly he's scared. And Hae-Ryung is watching, and he drops a bomb on her. I am Prince Do-won. And then the female physician shoots an arrow, and the guy runs away, and she chases him. And she, Hae-Ryung, is super confused. It's like, I've met you at least 3 times now, right? And now constantly, since I'm your appointed female historian. But I've met you at least 3 times now. And I didn't know that you were the prince. The first time, you were Meiwa. The second time was in the garden, and he didn't really give who he was. And then the third time, you were dressed as an eunuch. So yeah, that's when she finds out that he is actually Prince Do-won, and then he faints, and she catches him. Yeah. This show is so cute, you guys. I really like it. Honestly, this was my second time watching it, so I rewatched it. And there's a few dramas that I would not mind rewatching. Okay, I have a list, but then I also have a longer list of shows I need to watch. So I think the rewatching is gonna have to wait. Yeah, so this all happened prior to her officially getting appointed to him. Yeah, this all happened before she officially got appointed to him. But yeah, the next day, or the next time she's with him, he thanks her for not leaving him alone. Yeah, but she's kind of upset. So she switches positions with Inem, another female historian. So she then goes to the Crown Prince's residence, and Hae-Ryung is now going to the Crown Prince's residence, and Inem is going to Prince Do-won's residence. But while she's with the Crown Prince, he comes up with this great idea to bring everybody together. So they go shooting, doing archery, right? Shooting bows and arrows, you know, trying to get a bullseye. Which honestly, Prince Do-won cannot get a bullseye. He misses every shot he takes. Oh, it's so cute. So yeah, the Crown Prince is hitting bullseyes and Prince Do-won is not. And the female historians are giggling, and you know, he's in his feelings. He's kind of upset because, for one, the girl that he likes is watching him miss horrendously, atrociously. He is missing so badly. So he makes, you know, a proposition with her. Well, if you hit just one bullseye, you can laugh at me as much as you want. And so she takes him up on his proposition. And he's like, how many arrows do you need? And she's like, just one. And he's looking flabbergasted, like, what? You just need one? like, okay. So she takes her wand, she aims, she twists the bow, the arrow, and she shoots. And she gets a bullseye on the first try. And he is super confused, and she explains, this was my pastime hobby when I was young. So he stepped into a trap he didn't even know he was setting for himself. And of course he got mad afterwards. Like he then was extra in his feelings, because now she can laugh at him. I mean, which she was gonna do regardless of his consent. Sounds weird, but regardless of him telling her that she could, she was still going to. So yeah, that was their day together. And then after that, she was just back consistently with Prince Do-hwan being his historian. And now the girls are excited that, well, one of the girls, and then she's excited about getting her first paycheck, because remember when they did the hazing, she took out a loan to pay for the meals, for her portion of the meals, because I don't think she's from a really well-off family. So she took a loan to pay for her portion of the meals, and she wanted to start paying that back. But this is when they meet corruption at the deepest level. So they're waiting, and they're waiting, and they're waiting, and names are being called, but it's not. And he walks in, and he just says, hey, and the guy's like, okay, come. And he gives him his pay. And so now the vault is empty. It's empty. There's no pay left for people. And they're like, what? How can there not be any pay? Oh, they're called assistant clerks. Yeah. So the people are coming with their assistant clerks, and those people are getting their pay faster than everybody else. And then the guy says, well, next time you should just come earlier so that you could get your pay. But Hae-Ryung knows that it's not supposed to be like that. She has a decent sense of right and wrong. There's a few characters in this show who have a good understanding of right and wrong. But there's one character who thinks that it's just black and white, and doesn't think that it could get muddy in between, and like gray, right? That's what they say. It's not just black and white, there's some gray spots and all that. Yeah. So that's Officer Min, the son of the second state chancellor, Min. But they are two completely different personalities, so we really don't have to worry about his ethics, because he knows his dad is crap. And honestly, that's why he became a historian, to right the wrongs that his father has done, and to clear Joseon of all the, corruption that's happening. So yeah, that's a little bit on Officer Min Woo-won, right? Yeah, that's his name. So they actually then go to eat, and they see the other male historians, so the rest of the historians, and they're sitting and they're talking, and they're like, why are you so happy? Because one of the guys is just super happy, and like, why are you so happy? And he's like, I just got my first full pay today. Mind you, he's been working there for months, if not like at least a year. So he's been working there for like a really long time, and this was the first time he got his full pay. And honestly, Inem is feeling so deflated. Like, she has this loan that she has to pay back, and this guy is telling her that he just now got his full pay. And they start explaining the system, how you have to pay the assistant clerks to help you, and then bribe the person who's dishing out the pay to then be able to get your pay. And I think he They didn't do that. So that's why it took him so long to get his full pay. But they were explaining that that's how the systems go. So the officials who distribute the salaries, which is rice, are also bribed to prioritize your name into getting called, which is then you getting paid. And of course, our main heroine is quite upset with this news, and she writes a letter, I think to the king. Whew. And she stirs up some drama. Okay, some straight drama. Okay, so everybody's mad. The assistant clerks are no longer helping the historians. Okay, they said, you have extra work to do? Well, do it yourself. Okay, you have this to write up, you have that to take to that office. Who? Oh, I'm sorry, we don't know you. And so Officer Yang hears about this because one of the other like officials comes and they're like, who is Goo Hae-Ryung? And they're like, if the king would have seen this, do you know how many people would have been in trouble? Do you know how many people would have not been here if the king would have known this? You think we're just sitting by and not doing anything even though we know of this corruption because we want to? And so they're going in on Hae-Ryung, and he leaves, and Officer Yang then, you know, tries to continue, and she is like, well, what did I do wrong? If you can explain to me what I did wrong, then I can understand, but nobody's explaining to me what I did wrong. I saw a problem, I tried to fix it, this is wrong. How are we not getting paid because the people who get paid, who distribute the pay, want you to pay them so you can get your pay? How? And so she's there and she's like, her voice is really quite soothing. But she's like, how am I wrong?